Grip! If only there was another way.
Over here.
Who are you?
It doesn't matter who I am, but it matters what I have.
What do you have?
Performance-enhancing gear, of course. Only the finest.
Got the weight belt, the wrist wraps, knee wraps, and who could forget the wrist straps.
So, what do you want?
Oh, gym gear. I see. I thought you meant, you wanted to sell me the other stuff.
What do you mean?
I don't know. You come in here, you said just the way you look and everything. I thought maybe you meant something else.
What do you mean the way I look? What are you talking about?
Just, the clickbaity title and you saying you want to sell some performance enhancing stuff. I didn't mean to offend you, dude. I just thought maybe, that's what you meant.
Dude, I put on my nicest shades, my good jacket, and I come down here, I see you struggling, and I'm just trying to offer you some performance-enhancing gear, all right?
So you're telling me that if I do decide to use some of your gear, you're gonna take me through an insightful 4-minute video in which you describe every single one in detail in order to better inform me on how to improve my athletic performance?
You're damn right.
Gym gear. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
The almighty weight belt. Now, we've used it a lot of times in the past, and we've had a lot of questions asking, why do you use it, or even what does it do? And that's why we included it on this list. And we're gonna be going over the good first. So number 1 on the good list is going to be increasing intra-abdominal pressure. Yeah, that sounds kind of weird, but let me explain it real quick. It's pretty much what happens when you brace for a punch. Flexing your abs, you're flexing your abdominal muscles, and that's gonna help immediately not only stabilize your trunk, but also your spine. So same thing, you're putting yourself in a deadlift position or even a squat, you're going to be exhaling, you're gonna be tensing your abs, and it's creating that intra-abdominal pressure to help stabilize everything in those kind of compromising positions. Now with the belt, it's actually gonna help increase that because now you're pushing against something that's very stable and immediately you're gonna feel a lot of stabilization in that upper trunk area. Which leads us right into the number 2 on the good list, and that's going to be enhancing your performance, which kind of goes without saying. That's why we're doing this whole video in the first place. But let's say you're stepping up to the squat rack without a belt, you're performing the exercise, and then you include the belt, and immediately you're gonna feel that enhanced performance in the lift itself. And that's why the weight belt is damn good, because you can feel it on a lot of different exercises. And weirdly enough, even bench, because having a nice, stable, strong trunk is gonna help you lift better in tons of different areas, not just squats and not just deadlifts. And that's why you see a lot of dudes walk around with them nonstop, although some of it's a little overboard. Number 3 on the good list is going to be including the Valsalva maneuver. If you're not too familiar with this technique, you can actually perform it without a belt. And to do so, what you would do is, let's say squats for instance. You'd walk up to the bar, you'd unload it, you take a nice deep breath, and as you bring yourself down to the bottom position, or the hole, which is a difficult position to get out of once you're down there, especially with heavy weight, you're going to be pushing against a closed airway. You're not gonna let any air escape, and what that's gonna do is expand your stomach, and it's gonna help contract your abdominal muscles. This is why this works closely with intra-abdominal pressure. Contract those muscles, stabilize the spine, and you're gonna feel a hell of a lot more stronger getting out of that difficult portion. Once you reach that top position, you're gonna exhale out and then start over again. So you're still gonna be getting that nice oxygen as well. Now with the belt, this is just going to increase the stabilization because what happens is you're gonna be pushing out against a nice hard belt around your body. So this is just gonna stabilize you that much more. So that's why when you're using a belt, you wanna include the Valsalva maneuver as you're performing these heavy lifts. And you're gonna feel the benefits big time. Moving on to the bad, and the number 1 on the list is going to be choosing an improper belt. Now, with the obvious statements aside of don't choose one too big or don't choose one too small, what you do want to look for is choosing a belt that's consistently wide from the back to the front. You'll see a lot of belts with a really thick and wide back, and then it gets skinny in the front. Make sure you avoid those ones and choose the consistently wide ones, and you'll be good. Number 2 on the list is going to be wearing the belt improperly. Now, the first one is going to be wearing it too tight. If that sucker's too tight, you're gonna barely breathe, you're gonna feel your blood circulation being cut off, and you're not even gonna be able to perform an exercise properly because you can't even get in the right position. Number 2 is gonna be wearing it too loose, where it's just dangling there. It's not tight enough to actually feel the benefits of, let's say, the intra-abdominal pressure, even the Valsalva maneuver. make sure it's really snug. At least that's what works for us. And that way when you're performing the exercise, you get all the benefits and you feel damn good doing it.
You're in the gym and you're about to perform deadlifts. You're going today for your 1 rep max and everything is going well, but in the middle of the exercise, your grip strength goes out. Bummer. Enter wrist straps. These are a great aid and one of our absolute favorite pieces of gym gear, because as you go into larger lifts, especially on exercises such as deadlift, which is a pulling exercise, your grip and your forearms are probably going to be the first to go because they're smaller muscle groups. With the wrist straps, you're really going to be able to focus on the larger muscle groups such as the back. It's a great tool and assist, and we highly recommend them. We've went over the good, now let's go over a little of the bad. With wrist straps, they're primarily used for pulling exercises. So for exercises such as barbell curls or squats, they're just unnecessary. You don't need to use them. Also, you only want to use wrist straps when your grip strength begins to fail. If you're able to easily do 12 reps on shrugs or deadlifts, don't bother using them, because when you use them, you're not working your grip strength or your forearm, two smaller muscle groups that you always want to develop. Also, you want to use wrist straps correctly. When putting the wrist straps on, you want them to go underneath with the strap itself as opposed to above, and also you want the strap to go against your hand as opposed to with your hand. Because if you wrap it with your hand, the bar is just going to continue to roll, and that defeats the purpose of using the wrist straps in the first place.
Now, if you work out at a gym with powerlifters there, you've no doubt seen these dudes waddling around with overly tight knee wraps, and you're thinking to yourself, what the hell are these things all about? All of a sudden, they get under a squat rack with 500 to 800 pounds and they rep it out. These knee wraps must be doing something, right? Well, we're here to tell you. We're gonna go over the good and bad of what knee wraps are all about. The first thing on the good list is gonna be external compression. Now with the external compression, you're actually taking the knee wrap, and that's the external part, and you're compressing the joint. Now the joint, getting under very heavy weight, maybe heavier than you're used to, is going to feel a little unstable. There's a little movement in the knee joint itself. The patella tendon and the patella itself can be tracking left or right, and you're feeling really unstable under that heavy weight. It's a little scary and could possibly lead to injury in the long run. That's when the external compression comes into place, because what you do is wrap these knee wraps as tight as you can around that joint, and it's going to immediately stabilize the joint, so that way there's no left or right movement to either the ligaments, tendons, or even the joint itself. So when you get under that really heavy weight, maybe even heavier than you're used to, you're going to feel damn good doing it. Number 2 on the good list is going to be elastic energy. Now elastic energy is what the muscles somewhat already do in the first place. Let's say in a squat, for instance, you're starting in the top position and you're going to squat down into the bottom position, and what's that doing is going to put a lot of stretch in the muscle and also the ligament itself. And that's building elastic energy, because what you do is use that energy that's built up in the muscle to then propel yourself up to the top position through different contractions in the muscle. Now, with the knee wraps, they're actually creating their own elastic energy. So on top of your muscles' elastic energy, they're creating their own as well. That gives you even more so. You can feel a lot more powerful, strong, and, well, like in the first one, more stable. So now that 1 and 2 out of the way, we're moving on to the most important one, and really why you're using knee wraps in the first place. It's gonna be exceeding your raw lifting numbers. Let's say you're hitting 225 on the squat, you're gonna put on knee wraps and immediately push past that. And that's what it's all about. And that's why knee wraps are taking a top spot in the gym gear. Moving on to the bad. Now remember the number 1 on good, and that's gonna be helping stabilize the knee joint. Well, the number 1 on the bad list is going to be masking underlying problems. Unfortunately, whenever you're squatting, the knee is going to be put under a lot of stress and pressure. So you have to be very careful in this certain exercise. That's why you do a lot of mobility, stretching, and proper form techniques, and not go too heavy if you're not ready for it. So that's why the bad list can be introducing knee wraps if you're not particularly ready, or you're having issues with your knee in general, and then you're just masking that problem and can cause future problems in the long run. So just be careful and don't use knee wraps all the time, and make sure your knees are healthy and your form is good. Number 2 on the bad list is going to be improper use. Now with any tool, you're gonna have to learn how to use it first, and that is the same thing as with knee wraps. If you're not sure how to use them, make sure you do your research first and buy the proper wraps for you. But if you're improperly using them, well, you're gonna get under that heavy weight thinking you're gonna be able to push a lot more than you usually do, and you're not gonna be doing it, and it's gonna be a gym fail video in no time. So make sure you do your proper research and practice before implementing them into your program. Last on the bad list is going to be excessive use. Now you don't really wanna be excessive in anything you do. Moderation is key, and knee wraps are gonna be no different. So make sure you're implementing them in properly to your exercise and workouts. Knee wraps, for instance, are usually going to be used at a 90 to 100% of 1 rep max, really trying to push that heavy weight that you're not normally used to. Don't use them at around 70-75% max, even a little bit higher, busting out 8 to 12 reps. That's when you're gonna start causing imbalances in the muscles, and you're gonna start creating a handicap for yourself, because then all of a sudden when you don't use knee wraps, you're gonna feel a hell of a lot more weak because you're relying on the knee wraps. So make sure you don't excessively use them and you'll be good to go. Wrist wraps, what are they good for? We're about to tell you. Are you ready? Good. Number 1 is going to be helping stabilize the wrist in any kind of heavy pushing motion. So let's say you're doing some big bench press, and that's when you're gonna really see the wrist wraps shine in any kind of pushing motion. Number 2 on the good list is going to be stabilizing the wrist joint. Now, much like the knee wraps are gonna stabilize the knee joint, the wrist wraps are gonna help stabilize the wrist joint. It's not rocket science. But when you notice you're pushing that heavy weight and your wrists are starting to break, you're creating some pain in there, discomfort, or even if it's breaking the other way, which can be very dangerous on a bench press and even drop the bar and cause some real injury, well, that's when you wanna make sure you have that good wrist stabilization in those heavy lifts. And that's the benefits of using the wrist wraps. Now, with every good, there's a bad. With every light, there's a dark. So we're about to go over the bad. Number 1 on the bad list is going to be overuse. Now, you don't want to be just using them as a bracelet or a fashion statement. You want to be using them for a purpose, and that's what they're there for. So make sure you're not just wearing them around, especially when you're just doing pulling exercises, because that's number 2 on the bad list, using them with the improper exercises. So if you're doing lat pull downs, pull-ups, if you're even doing deadlifts, wrist wraps are not really gonna shine there. They're not really for that. They really help to support the wrist in pushing exercises so your wrist doesn't break either or. Either way. Which way? I don't know. One of the ways. Fuck it.
There you go, dudes and girls. Our favorite pieces of gym gear, when we like to use them, and also some things you want to avoid.
And thanks for joining us, and let us know what your favorite gym gear is in the comments below.
It's gonna be drugs. Most people are gonna think they're being witty and say drugs.
Well, we did kind of troll them with the title.
That's true. We clickbaited your ass, so we deserve it.
So stay buff.